Hello and welcome to the Why of It All, episode 5. We are changing it up today.
We are.
This is going to be different. So Gina is at home in Bryan, Texas, and I'm at home here in Leander, Texas. And we have a surprise guest, our first ever guest on the Why of It All, with an incredible story that we cannot wait to share with you.
It feels so official. Like we're official podcasters now because we have our first guest. So I cannot thank this man for coming on and being our first guest. It's such a monumental moment in the Why of It All podcast, I feel like, right, Melanie?
It's a
And
milestone. Yeah,
it's
it's
a
a milestone.
milestone. We got to celebrate this kind of stuff. And we've worked hard to get to where we are. And we're just so grateful that Shayne has decided to come on and have a talk with us today about his healing journey. And yeah, I think we should just jump right in. What do you think?
Let's jump right in. Tell us about Shayne, and then we're going to bring him onto the stage.
Perfect. So a little bio about Shayne. This semi-retired adrenaline junkie has lived a life stitched together by raw courage and unrelenting drive. Early on, he was a boat slave chasing thrills across the water. But his story took a brutal turn when a motorcycle wreck left him with a broken neck and both legs shattered. Most would have called it quits, but not him. 2 years later, he was back on two wheels, tearing up the track to win a national championship in motorcycle racing. That triumph was a middle finger to fate. Proof he could rise from the wreckage. Then, years later, a lightning strike hit, adding another scar to his saga and forcing him to dig even deeper. Through it all, tragedy, triumph, and a patched body together by sheer will, he's learned to love his neighbor as himself. So, guys, we just want to welcome Captain Shayne to the podcast, the Why of It All podcast.
Welcome.
Hello, ladies.
Hello.
What a joy to be here. Thank you both for, number one, for doing the podcast, because I've enjoyed as a listener your insight and your input. And I think for me, the genuineness of your stories, both your stories and your transparency of how tough life can be sometimes. And like you said, and thank you for the fabulous intro. That was fun. This is my first ever intro to a podcast. So when you asked me a couple of questions and I said, Grok, help me use this and make it. And one thing led to another. I said, why not make it fun and just let everybody know that you're allowed to make your own story in life, and it can be as fun as you want it to be. Even if you're in the depths of despair, you know what? Speaking positive and putting good energy out is, why not?
We get to decide what story we tell.
That intro, you sound like a hero, like an action hero. That's what you sound like. And I have to say real quick before we get into some questions, Shayne, you and I have known each other for years. I don't know how many years we're going on, but I want to give credit to Melanie and I starting the podcast because that's how you and I reconnected. And I think it's special.
I didn't know that.
Yes, he reached out on social media and was like, man, what are you doing? Whatever you're doing, I love it. And let's talk. I want to know more. And so just a beautiful, like God's intervention, those divine meetings. And I just think this is a divine appointment we have today with each other. So just want to acknowledge that.
And I second that, hopefully I know you're going to third, Melanie. So it's amazing what happens when you make yourself available for the universe to use, how exciting life becomes.
It really is. It really is. And also to have the willingness to follow that inner guidance, because a lot of people would ignore those signals. And I think all three of us here are the kind of people who we felt the inner guidance and we didn't ignore it.
Right.
Yeah. We went with it. So this is just fabulous that we're all here. So I love it. How are you feeling today, Shayne? Like, how are you feeling? Because I know, we're going to get into some of the things that have been going on lately, but how are you feeling today with your, newer brain injury and things like that?
Yeah. So that's been a journey. Not to get into the details because I'm still learning what life looks like, but almost 2 years ago this summer, I was struck by lightning in the Bahamas while at work and suffered a pretty nasty brain injury from that. And learning to live with the brain injury, it changed my personality. It changed my sense of humor. It changed my level of awareness in life general, my level of, my energy. I stay tired. But so yesterday I met with a new doctor and fabulous. I'd never heard of it before. She's a functional chiropractic neurologist.
Wow.
And our initial visit was almost 4 hours. And
Wow.
out of the 35 doctors that I've seen over 150 times in the last 18 months, she had the most explainable, understandable answers for somebody with a brain injury. So I'm excited, but I'm exhausted. It was across town and we stayed at a friend's house, the night before, and I couldn't drive home yesterday after traffic, et cetera. So we stayed at another friend's, and just even 2 nights away from home, I'm extremely exhausted and fatigued, but I wasn't passing up this chance. So bear with me. Sometimes I still slur a little bit or stutter or, lose track of where I'm trying to think. And I'm moving forward. So
you are. I want to mention something, because when you and I talked about the brain injury and the lightning strike, you also said something else that I thought was interesting. You said you're different now, your personality is different, but you said your level of empathy has greatly increased. Can you like tell us, like, because I think that's fascinating that, like, before the lightning strike, you had a totally different energetic, emotional, and so can you touch on that, like how you your empathy, you said, is just greatly increased?
So I'm not going to pretend to know everything at all. I'm always, spiritual wise, business, whatever. When somebody comes at me and says, I got it all figured out, that's when my wall goes up, and it's like, you know what, let me step back and just listen. So I'm learning, and it's been tough. I'm not going to lie. It's been really tough with the energy. From what I can determine is that somehow the injury has caused my body to vibrate on a different level, not a good level, not a bad level. I'm not trying to judge it, but it's different. I've been forced to slow down. I've always had to balance the line of, being a human doer versus being a human being. Because I'm a doer. I do. That's, my success. I've always used goals or, project work, whatever, to base that. And it's been a challenge ongoing for many, many years now, reminding myself that my self-worth doesn't always come from my accomplishments. And with the lightning strike, what was crazy is I've always been an empath, but there's been numerous times where it felt like I absorbed somebody else's energy. It changed my entire demeanor. My headache went normally I have a constant migraine. I get horrible migraine here nonstop on a 4 to a 5 on a scale of 10
every day.
Those particular times when I absorbed the energy, it went to an immediate 10, and it took me a couple of days to recover. Like I'm in bed for 2 days after that. And that is new.
That's
new. And I joke because I think I'm going to be the really cool, crazy old man in the corner, that's got all these fun stories or whatever. Like, look at this yahoo over here. He's, but now it's like, wow, I'm truly seeing that in the sense that my life has changed enough to where it's affected me.
Yeah.
So I've been reaching out and trying to learn, and again with the injury, it's tough because I'm not able to learn as fast as I could before. I'm not able to retain the information and that I have in the past. So giving myself a little bit of grace through that journey, but at the same time understanding there's a whole lot going on that I have no idea about, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
Because if I can absorb somebody's energy on a negative standpoint, shouldn't I also be able to use my positive energy and affect somebody in a positive manner, as opposed to letting somebody affect me in a negative manner?
I love that.
It's almost like the reset button got hit, and you're getting to reestablish who you are and how you interact with the world. It's interesting. And a lot of people, I think, would get stuck in the woe is me and the thing that happened to me. And I barely know you, but what I can tell is that you are someone who is looking for, how can I use this experience to become a greater version of myself? How can I use it to serve others? And that is just, I mean, it totally rings our bells here at the Why of It All. Yeah. That's like our whole jam. So amazing. Now I understand that this is not your first injury though. So do you want to maybe take us back a little bit and share some of the other incredible things that you've experienced, that you've gone through, that have changed you?
I hear that a lot, and I don't get tired of talking about it, but I don't want my life to be focused on that. So I've made this funny little, not even a jingle, but I joke about it. I said the 90s were a bitch for me.
The 90s were.
When I watched my mother and my sister get killed in a car wreck. In 1993, I got hit by a drunk driver. I was the only survivor. Two of the other people, unfortunately burned to death. 1995, I broke my neck and both my legs in a motorcycle accident. And then I woke up from a coma. The doctors told me I'd never walk again. 2 years later, I was fortunate enough to win the national championship. And then in 99, I broke my back, and I said, it's time to slow down a little bit. And that's what catapulted my change in career from being, in the motorcycle industry over to, I was in a doctor's office and I saw a magazine with all these really cool underwater pictures and said, do what you love for a living, become a scuba dive instructor. And I'm like, well, that's me all over it. So ripped out the page of the magazine and called them when I got home, and they're like, we got the program just for you. We'll just come on down. So I packed my crew cab dually, left my race trailer in Texas, and moved to Fort Lauderdale to become a scuba dive instructor. And that's led to a whole nother round of adventures as well, which ultimately, led me here to being in the Bahamas and having a lightning strike. So.
Wow.
The 90s were a bitch for you, Shayne. That is definitely some struggle. Going back to like the human doer versus the human being, and what these little struggles have taught you. Many people struggle with feeling like they have to be productive all the time, like their worth is tied to what they accomplish, what we were just kind of touching on. If you could go back and like talk to your old self, the doer, the one that was caught up in the doing, what would you say to him? Like, with what you know now, and what you know now that your worth is not tied to what you're doing, but who you are. What would you say to that older version of Shayne?
That's a great question. That's a deep question. That's a great question.
It is. We get deep here.
I'm going to keep it simple and just say that you have to find a balance that works for you. The three of us are extremely different, but I think we would agree on the importance of having balance of doing and being. And also for me, it's learning to set the boundaries, which, you hear all these things in life, the cliches and the puns and the do this and do that. But when you break it down, and if I could go back 25 years and say, Shayne, I need you to learn how to be happy, being a good person while you're accomplishing the things that the universe has set out in front of you to do, all the while encouraging your neighbor, learning how to love your neighbors yourself. But again, just setting some personal space to have, because it can be an ugly world out there. There's a lot of friends I've learned, especially since this last injury, that my friendships, I don't have as many people calling now that there's not a boat to go on or fish to catch or, adventures to have. It's I'm not alone in my healing journey, but I certainly don't have the amount of people in my life that I did when I was, able to post pictures of chest deep water in the Bahamas on an abandoned beach, or, all those messages that come in, hey, we want to live your life. It's like, well, nobody calls when it's time to fix the toilet or, wax the boat or whatever in the sense, but learning that in general and saying, okay, hey, let's be honest with ourselves about our objective. And the older I get, the more important it is for me to actually be than it is to do.
Yeah, I love that.
I'm a doer, so I always have goals, but my goals now have seemed to shift, especially during the recovery of the injury. For me now, it's more important to make sure I'm giving myself time to heal.
Yeah.
Because if I run myself ragged, especially right now, I'm not going to be worth anything to anybody down the road.
No, you're not. And like you just said, to touch on that, healing isn't always a smooth process. It can be uncomfortable, right? Confusing, frustrating. I mean, we all have our own stories of our own healing journeys. But have you ever had a time during this process, even in the older injuries and even to now, have you ever had a time when your faith or your philosophy was challenged? And what helped you find your way through it? Like, did it ever have you questioning your faith when these things happened to you that were so unbelievable and so hard and tragic and traumatic?
I'm going to say that's a complicated but good question. And yes, there's, before, somewhere in the middle of racing motorcycles, and after I got back from the Bahamas the first time, I went through seminary. I skipped college to race motorcycles. So
I didn't
when
know
I
that.
decided to go to seminary, because I wanted to learn about God and Jesus. And,
Yeah.
so I did, I guess they call it where you audit classes. So I've got 2 years of postgraduate study in seminary and spent
Okay.
several years as
Wow.
the youth pastor and community pastor,
Did not know
and got
that.
caught up in what could very well be, I want to use my words careful here because I could offend a lot of people really easy, but I saw firsthand the ugliness of the inside politics of the particular where we were. And I'm not saying it's for everybody. So your church goes at home. Don't think that what I'm saying is exactly your church, but I got tired of let's build a bigger building so we can have more seats, so we can get more people, so we can have more money, so we can build a bigger building kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the transparency that we found in just having a few families to share life together, to share the struggles, to share the joys, for me was more meaningful and more, I was able to grow more spiritually through that. So I've kind of stepped away from what we would call American Christianity, and it's allowed my faith to expand beyond the limitations of this is exactly what you're told Jesus looks like, and he's got to be that way. And if you don't believe that way, you're going to hell. Well, I don't believe that anymore. So that was very freeing for me.
Yeah.
So letting my faith say, hey, I believe that God loves me regardless. Through my stupidity, through my mistakes, through my glorious endeavors, through all of that. I've had some dark conversations with God, because if he's the God that he says he is, he's supposed to be able to handle those doubts and those questions and my frustration and my anger and my tears. And, I did not expect at 46 years old to have a midlife crisis be, a lightning flash and change my entire life, and me not have any idea. And it wasn't until, one of the counselors that I saw through therapy, she's like, Shayne, you're grieving. You're going through a stage of grief right now for a life that you may never get back. And until she put that in black and white, I hadn't even thought about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was another thing that you said at a conversation before we recorded, was that you were grieving the loss of who you were, right? In essence, because you've changed, right? Your frequency is different, your vibration is different. Um, that's got to be a very different process to kind of go through, grieving the loss of, like you said, what you thought that how things were going to turn out or how they were supposed to look, or who you were then and how you are now. That's probably I'm trying to put myself in that position. Like, that would be tough.
Well, I can tell you I'm in that position. I can resonate so much with that. Shayne, this is the first time we're meeting, but I've been dealing with chronic pain for over a decade. And had a whole bunch of stuff before that too, just like your story. And from my experience, going through a physical healing process and healing never being linear. And
Mhm.
you said, what did you say, 35 or so different practitioners that you saw? I didn't count them up, but it's probably somewhere in that neighborhood too. And that
You've seen a bunch, Melanie.
the experience of going from one provider to the next with the hope and the anticipation for relief and getting some kind of improvement, and then over and over and over again, the letdown and the frustration when things don't improve. This brings up a question that I have for you that is something that I've chewed on 1,000 times or more of when you go through that experience where you have the frustration and the letdown and what feels like a failure point in your healing journey. In hindsight, have you had any of those experiences that when you turn around and you look at it from the other direction, that actually those experiences were some of your greatest teachers? Or have you, in hindsight, can you look back and identify moments that were really low moments in that non-linear healing journey that in hindsight, you're like, wow, I can see how this experience is something that taught me something, or I learned from it, or I grew from it somehow?
I'm going to say absolutely. I'm also going to add that for a healthy person going through what you've explained, and I know for myself, if I was 100% healthy, I would be exhausted from the amount of treatment and therapies and doctor visits that we've done, and doing it sick and not feeling well has been brutal. I'm 1,000% thankful that my particular situation isn't any worse than it is, because there's so many people in the world that, and it's not a competition. It's not like my pain is worse or better or whatever. It's exhausting to not feel good. And then when you have different people telling you different answers, and at the end of the day, there's no relief. And it's that alone is exhausting and can be depressing. So the non-linear healing line can be really freaking ugly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And going through it all, wondering if you're ever actually being understood. Wondering, does this person who's nodding their head and saying words, do they really understand what I'm trying to portray? And are they really going to be able to help? I'll say for me, in hindsight, looking back at all of the failed treatments and failed therapies and frustrations over the many years, I would say a silver lining for me is knowing that at no point did I ever just give up. At no point did I ever decide I'm fine. This is just how I am now, and this is just the way it's going to be, and I'm just going to be miserable for the rest of my life. For me, going through each one of those experiences would reiterate to me how I will always, always keep moving forward. I will never let myself just succumb for more than just a few minutes of pity party. Like occasional pity parties it's a human reaction. And then also in hindsight, recognizing that every single thing that I've been through up until this point has led me to where I am now. And where I am now is really, really good.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. And if it wasn't for all of those experiences, I wouldn't have the reference points that I have now to be of service to others and to understand what someone like you, on what some level or another, I can understand to some degree what you're going through. And having all the experiences that I had are what provided me the reference points to be able to identify and support and be empathetic and compassionate for other people going through it.
That's a good point. And you see the meme or the little gifs, or it's, be kind because you never know what somebody's going through. And what you just explained for me is just a reminder of how important it is to be empathetic and non-judgmental. I don't look like I have any problems. but on the inside, it's a freaking tornado, whirlwind, that's, tsunami warning coming in. The opportunity, and I want your input, allowed me the opportunity to help remember there's a line from being the human doer and the human being, and that I have to learn that balance. Sometimes it's okay for me not to feel good, because that's a reminder that I'm human. I'm not a machine. I'm not on a 100-hour work week schedule anymore, to where I have 9,000 tasks to get done before I can go home and go to bed, or make the next clients happy who may be coming, whatever I'm doing at that particular time.
Yeah.
So I would say, looking back, for me, that's a good reminder of finding the appropriate balance in life.
And I have a question.
If that makes sense.
No, it
Yeah.
does. Complete sense. But I have a question for both of y'all, because my healing struggles have not been so much physical pain as more mental and emotional. But like, with as many doctors as you've both seen, and having to go and tell your story again to another clinician and a professional, don't you feel like, for our listeners, it's important for you to be your own advocate, right? That nobody's
Oh,
going
yeah.
to, right? I just feel that like neither one of you stopped at the first answer from the doctor, and you didn't feel good after, and you're like, no, 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 I got to keep going. I feel like it's so important. Nobody's going to advocate for yourself like you will, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to be your own best advocate, and to listen to that little voice inside, like, okay, maybe things are a little better, but there could be some work here, or I got to find out where the underlying pain is coming from. Maybe they put a band-aid on it, and it's still, like I said, I mean, you just went to a 4-hour doctor's appointment yesterday to still advocate for healing and for feeling better, right?
Yeah. And I will add to that as well, that in my experience, you can't just address the physical body only when you're going through physical healing process. You can't just address the body. A decade of seeing practitioners who were just addressing the body got me absolutely nowhere. I had to also address my mind and my nervous system and my mindset, my points of views about things. I had to address the beliefs that I had taken on over many, many years of I'm broken and nobody can help me and I'm never going to get better and I'm going to be in a wheelchair by the time I'm 60. I had to take stock of those points of views and beliefs that I had taken on and decide that I was going to let those points of views go. And then I also had to address my nervous system. I had to address fear within me and the ways that I was stuck in mental loops and mental patterns and thought patterns, habits of thought that were keeping me stuck in the fight or flight mode that was allowing the pain to just continue. So that's another thing. Advocating for yourself. If the practitioners that you're seeing are not providing the support for you that you feel like you need, find somebody else, but also remembering you've got to do the work too. You can't outsource your well-being to somebody else. You have to take personal responsibility for your own well-being, whether that is addressing your mental state or addressing your lifestyle habits, your dietary habits. These are all things where we have to be willing to take personal responsibility for our own well-being. And we can bring in practitioners to support us along the way, but you can't outsource your health to them.
Right.
Shayne, I was going to ask you a question that I kind of went past, but now it makes sense. Back to like the human doer versus the human being. What are some small daily choices that you make to stay in that mindset, especially when life tries to pull you back into busyness? Like, is there any like daily practices that you do to help you stay in that human being mindset?
I'm going to go directly back to what Melanie just said and remind myself, as well as everyone that I get to talk to, the importance of having an attitude of gratefulness, living gratitude, living in mindfulness of, understanding that I get to choose whether I'm happy or not. Nobody else can dictate whether I'm happy or not.
Yes.
I feel like shit, but girl, I'm happy today. The sun is shining and I'm not done making the world a better place.
Yes.
That is how I say, okay, hey, I'm going to keep on going. I feel like shit. I'm not having fun, but I'm not giving up. Amen. Hallelujah.
I love that, Shayne. I think we've said that same thing on a previous podcast, that we're just going to keep moving forward, even if we're hurting, or even if we're tired, or even if we're, it's that whole thing of like that mindset of like, keep moving forward. We're not stopping.
I had a conversation with somebody the other day. I was horribly ill, I was like mucus central.
You had the flu or something.
I don't know what it was. It's been a long time since I've been that sick, but I had a conversation with somebody on the phone when I was like really in the depths of it. And I said, I'm sick. I'm so sick, but I'm happy. And then I'm pretty sure that's an Alanis Morissette song. Isn't there a line from an Alanis Morissette song that's I'm sick, but I'm happy? Something like that. And I was like, I don't know where that came from, but
I don't know, but what I found interesting is, even though you were sick on your deathbed and she was like fever, body aches, sore throat, you were so inspired. Our podcast had really had you inspired, because you were belting out all kinds of like documents, and like I was like, dang, this girl's sick, but she sure is like working her little tushy off on our podcast. So I was impressed, because when I'm sick I don't want to do shit.
I need to learn a little bit more about what Shayne learned here about the doing versus the being, because I think I should have honored my body and relaxed a little bit more. The problem with me is that when inspiration strikes, I'm like, I want to do it now because all the juices are flowing now, and I don't want to interrupt the flowing juices.
I'll be damned if it's not at 2:00 in the morning, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
This is not a very convenient. It's not a good time. Here we go.
Shayne, do you want to like tell our listeners a little bit about the what's going on with the book deal or possible book deal? Can you share a little bit about what you want to share about how that all came to be?
So that weaves right into the being and the doing, because I felt, and this is crazy, but I felt that I was not going to be able to contribute to the world anymore because of my brain injury. And I had a hard time with that. And I struggle with that. And, I've written the inspiration when it comes at 2 a.m. I've written a few blogs that I've had quite a bit of positive feedback from people just saying, I can really resonate with that. I'm not a writer. I've published a few poems, and, I'm a published photographer, but I'm not a writer per se. And in my healing journey, being an advocate for myself, I found a few brain injury authors that their books were just a story of somebody overcoming life's obstacles, and they put it in the words beautiful. And I thought to myself, I said, I can do that. Maybe that's a way, because I've got a lot of time. I've got a lot of doctor's appointments, but in between the doctor's appointments, the reoccurring thing that they're telling me is I have to let my body rest and recover. Which, being somebody that's lived abroad for many, many years, resting and recovering is not in my vocabulary. So to circle back around, I reached out to one of the ladies that wrote one of the books I read. Facebook, just like I reconnected with you. I said, hey, Amber, you don't know me, but I really appreciate your book. You helped me through a tough time. And we've chatted a few times, and she introduced me to her publisher. And she's like, I really think that your story would maybe resonate with this publisher. So I jump on her website, and as I'm on her website, there's a book right there that she just launched. I'm like, I need to read that book. It's something, childhood trauma and overcoming a brain injury. I'm like, well, that's right up my alley. So I ordered the book, and I'll be damned if I didn't spend an hour on the phone this last Sunday with the author, and then spend an hour on the phone this week with the publisher. And I think what I want to say how important it is surrounding ourselves with the people that encourage us through the journey, in the stages of the journey. Right now, I don't have a lot of boat captain friends. I've got a few boat captain friends, and, I still have a few boat owners that I talk to, but that circle has become very small.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing my circle expand with people that are authors, such as y'all that are doing podcasts, and people that are saying, hey, the world, it isn't about me just seeing how much I can do for myself. And, I want to make the time, I guess maybe it's the selfish aspect, but it's transformed. I want to make my time here in this part of this journey feel like I didn't waste it. Now, I know it's not wasted because I'm healing and my body's healing and I'm growing, but I still want to feel like I'm not wasting my time and I'm contributing. So yeah, I've started writing some notes.
How exciting.
A lot of blah, 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 and a lot of random shit, but
that's okay.
This publisher said that she can work magic. So we'll check back in like 6 months and see what's happening there for sure.
Oh yeah.
I love it. I love hearing that. It's not everybody goes through a hardship and feels the impulse from it to focus on how can I use this to be of service to others.
Yep.
That is incredible. That is an incredible thing. Gina and I have talked about on our show before something that I call the simultaneity of gifting and receiving. And we could even kind of, in this case, we could kind of adjust that to having to do with the healing journey. When you are being of service to others, and in doing so, you are receiving healing. You are being rejuvenated in the process.
Yeah.
It's, and I think for Gina and I both, that's sort of one of the reasons why we created the Why of It All, is because we're both in the middle of our own healing journeys still. We are both learning. We like what we started out talking about. It's like nobody here is claiming to have it all figured out.
No.
But
we're just talking it out. We're talking
it out. Yeah. But in the process, in the process of having these experiences, we're having conversations about what can we do to lift one another up? What can we do to be intentional with our mindset such that we are moving through our healing journeys, that we're not getting stuck in it? And then how can we take all of the little tools and processes and things that we have learned along the way through our own journeys? How can we share that with others to support other people on their journey? And being all of that, talking about being all of that, embodying the desire and the will to be of service to others, it lifts us up too. We get to experience and receive healing from that as well. And it's like that whole "a rising tide lifts all boats" things. That's a perfect analogy for you, actually. That just popped in my head. It's just such an incredible journey. And I know that not everybody out there feels so inclined. Not everybody out there is a natural healer whose love language, for example, is service to others. And that's perfectly fine.
That's okay.
But there is something truly magical and inspiring and uplifting that occurs when you do decide that instead of being completely focused on the woe is me and all the things that have happened to me, with intentionality, you take your experience of how can I use this experience to lift others up as well. Absolutely. It's pretty magical.
It is. It's amazing to think that out of all the creation at this point in history, that the creator of our universe would choose me to make somebody else's life more encouraged. I mean, if that doesn't encourage you, I don't know. I can't help you. I don't know.
I ain't got no words for
Beautiful.
you. Right. So Shayne, for our listeners, like people that are going to listen to this and take it in and soak it in, for somebody who's listening that's going through the thick of a tough season, like somebody that's really struggling, they're going through it, and can't yet see the light on the other side, what would you say to them? Like what words of wisdom or encouragement would you give them if they're listening and they're really going through a rough patch?
I've got some gray hair. I don't know how much wisdom it is. I like to call it wisdom. This is all I think a good reminder is just to step back and realize that we're on a little rock hurling through what they call eternal space and time, which my little mind can't fathom. But to
Mine either.
understand that there's 8 billion people in the world, that you're not alone, and step back and say, this is a season in life. If we don't have good seasons, we're gonna, bad seasons, whatever season you may be in, it's a season. And you get to decide how you react to the season that you're in. And I would say definitely, Melanie, be a self-advocate, do your own work, because you're the only person. I have a wonderful caregiver. Erin has been with me since day one of this journey, and I couldn't imagine my experience in this part of life without her. She's been phenomenal.
We need to meet her at some point.
We will. She's still recovering from her own. The day we got back from Florida, the poor thing slipped in the mud here in the driveway and broke her leg and her ankle in 5 places. So day one of no stress at home, we take her to the hospital for what ended up being almost 8 months in a wheelchair.
Bless her heart.
But she's been encouraging. She's been the most fabulous, and that has helped me to keep my head up, because there's days that I don't want to go anymore, and it's exhausting, and I'm tired.
Yeah.
But she's like, Shayne, you're doing so wonderful, and you're going to make it. And I want to share Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." I love that word, "be still." In the original Hebrew language, it's called harpu. And I resonate with that, because harpu actually means to let go. And the coolest analogy that I've read of harpu is a sign. You've been shipwrecked and your boat's gone and you're in the water and you're clinging on to whatever piece is floating that's keeping you from drowning. That Hebrew word harpu means let go. It means release control. I'm going to let go of holding on to whatever. I'm going to let go of me thinking that I'm going to make my life be okay. I'm going to release control and say, God, I'm available for whatever you have next in life. And I'm going to believe that it's going to be more wonderful than I can dream of. And I have faith in that. So I just got tingles. I don't get tingles, but I got little butterflies there, because I truly believe that.
Yeah.
So everyone.
I love that. And the letting go of control. And it also is a reflection of what Gina and I were talking about in our last episode, of letting go of resistance as well.
Not easy. It can be difficult, right?
Of course.
Easier said than done.
Letting go of resistance, letting go of that control is what allows the energy to begin moving again, so that you don't stagnate in the way things are. It allows the process to begin unfolding, that healing journey to start picking up momentum. That is beautiful. I love that analogy.
Yeah, I mean, we'll let go of the blockages and the things that no longer serve us in the path moving forward. And that looks different for every single person, and it may look different for me every single day. So it's going to be, I have constant work of finding those boundaries and understanding that my importance here is just as important for me to be a nice guy than it is to go out and catch people a bunch of fish. I like doing both. I like catching people big fish, but I also like not being an asshole. So there's people who think I'm an asshole, but there's people that guarantee I can catch big fish too.
That's great. That's great.
It.
Well, I think that is probably the most beautiful sentiment that we can wrap it up on. Shayne, do you want to share how people can, where people can find you and how they can follow your work and be up to speed on when your book comes out?
Yeah, well, like I said, the book's super, super early stages. So my website is just captainshayne.com. We'll put a link in the description. And if anybody's interested, we do have a private group on Facebook called Encourage One Another Daily. And it's just, it started out as a group text message that now has evolved into over 730 people. It's a private group because I wanted it to be a safe place to share. But it's like I said, 730 people, a lot of strangers, but jump on there. It's just Encourage One Another Daily on Facebook. And I'm always available. I haven't, if anybody wants to call or send an email or chat, I have a contact form on the website. And don't ever feel like you're alone. That's a hard feeling, and you're not alone.
Shayne, we'll
Oh,
put your website link on our podcast so that people can reach out or be a part of that Facebook group if they want some encouragement. I just love it. I love what you're doing, and the energy is the why of it all energy. So we're gonna have you back on. We're gonna have
yes.
you back on. We want to know. I want to know more. And of course, we'll be in touch, you and I.
Yeah, I would
Um,
like to say thank you both for venturing out and doing something new for y'all. I did find encouragement through your podcast, and I feel very
Oh,
fortunate to
good.
be your first guest. I look forward to coming back down the road, and y'all keep up the good work. It's awesome. Well, may your day be blessed, and I look forward to chatting with y'all soon.
you
That sounds
too,
wonderful.
Shayne.
Same to you. Stick around for a little bit. We're going to catch you backstage here, okay?
Mhm.
All
Thank
right.
you, everyone.
Thank
If
you.
you feel so inclined, we would love it if whatever platform you are watching this show on, you give us a like or a follow or a subscribe. Send
Mhm.
us your comments. Let us know what you think.
Mhm.
This has been such an incredible conversation, and we want to engage with you, the audience. So we love
Mhm.
you all. We are here with you. You are not alone, is the message of the day.
Mhm.
Thank you, thank you,
Mhm.
thank you. Bye,
And
everybody.
we will be back soon. Bye, guys.